Hey, everybody. Beautiful, beautiful day here in Minnesota. Streams are firing up, getting everything going here, making sure we're all working right. All right. We got YouTube, we got LinkedIn, we got Instagram, making sure. Let's see, make sure Facebook, the main feed is coming up here. We had a little bit of a lag last time. Oh, yeah. There we go. There we go. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Okay, everybody. Is ready to get this thing rocking and rolling. This is the final show of Mastering the Basics for 2025 for the season. This is the most popular series of shows I do every year. This is the time of year where we hit January 1st. We want to restart our businesses. And we've been thinking about all those things that we've been meaning to do to professionalize ourselves and our businesses. And I have this series of shows coincide with that. There is 8 shows, mastering the basics shows here, and we go through the steps to professionalization. At the end of this show, I'm going to give you my email address as I always do, and I'm going to give you my one single source of truth, my sheet that has all the steps to professionalizations. Every hyperlink for every show that we do, I update them every year. So you're not seeing the three years ago, the series. As I learn things, as we learn things, as the industry progresses, I add all those things in there. I put hyperlinks to all the shows. It starts off with show number 1, proven processes, the SOPs. It goes to an estimating process, then a production process, then marketing, then human resources, then financials and goal tracking, leading, managing, and hold people accountable. And today, the final show is self. Self is a brand new show for the year. It's something over the last couple of years I've had to vet out myself very closely because whether you want to believe it, whether you know you believe it, you are the problem. The good part is you also are the solution. So many times in your business, and many times when people ask me to look into their business and potentially give them some critiques, give them some feedback, it is always the owner. I mean, we are creators, we are founders, we are scalers. And typically, what we do is we create a business in our own likeness. There's things that we're very good at, we get energy from, and naturally we do more of those. There's things that we don't like to do, and that robs us of our energies. We're either not good at them and we don't do them. And so tonight, I'm going to present you a very special show. The first time I've ever done this, the recap of the steps to professionalization, mastering the basics for 2025 self-development. And so we're going to talk about that. I'm going to give you all the steps to professionalization. I'm going to share with you a bunch of stories from my recent professional life, other people's professional lives, the retreats, round this all out. Before we jump into that, 2 things I want to promote. The next week, I am going to be in New York. I'm going to be in Buffalo and Syracuse giving master's classes. If you want to attend, contact your Sherwin-Williams rep. They will get you in there, right? If you don't know how to attend, if you don't know who to contact, you personally email me, email at the end of this show, and I will see what I can do to connect you to somebody who can get you in. I just got back from Chicago this week. Chicago has one of the best pro shows in the country. Like 1,100 people come to this thing, standing room only. I got to present in a rock club, right? It's the coolest place ever. They make some of the best barbecue ever. I get to present in a rock club. And the coolest part is I've been innovating the master's classes as I take them around. You know, for the people who've seen multiple of them, it's never the same, right? I'm constantly adding data and feelings from my own business. This year, we got a lot of stuff. We got a lot of innovation. So estimating and marketing have been my most selected master's classes. I've done the most amount of development with those classes. And typically I love this culmination, this crescendo of master's classes during the day where my marketing one, everybody is hard up for leads right now. Marketing costs a lot of money. Nobody really knows what's going on. And there's just like this angst about labor is a little easier to find. Leads are just a struggle for everybody. We're actually ahead of projected leads in my company. And I show people how exactly we're going to get 1,800 leads this year with some really cool stuff, including a live demonstration with ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, and that simple data from my company where I feed this data into ChatGPT and it helps me along with my marketing process. I do it in real time with artificial intelligence. So if you guys want to see any of that stuff, I reserve that stuff for in-person people, right? And that's what I like to do. I would love to be there with you. Next week, I will be spending Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in New York between Buffalo and Syracuse, doing 3 days of master's classes. And so I would love to see you guys. If you want to attend, contact your Sherwin rep in the area. If not, contact me. I'll get you in touch with a Sherwin rep and they'll get you there. Now, my master's classes are happening next week. This event, the Craftsmanship and Painting Conference, is happening in April in Annapolis, Maryland. This is an absolutely amazing thing. And I want to share with you guys a very special story about this event. The PCA, the Painting Contractors Association, is a 140-year-old nonprofit that serves to build better contractors. And that's what this event does. Why is this event special to me? This event is special to me because over 10 years ago, I first got involved in this industry at this event. The first ever PCA event that I went to was a Craftsmanship Forum event in Oak Park Heights, Illinois, Frank Lloyd Wright and all that stuff, where I just came from this week, Chicago. And it was absolutely awesome. It was absolutely awesome. Most people don't know this. I met Jason Paris for the first time ever at a Craftsmanship Forum event over 10 years ago. We literally live right next to each other in Minnesota. We're such introverted guys. We never talk to one another. We had to go to Chicago where we met in the same room and we became best friends in the industry. And that's where that relationship started. Most people have no idea that that's the case. It happened at this particular event. Could you guys imagine Jason Paris at a Craftsmanship event, right? People don't normally think of him as the craftsman. He's actually a very good painter, and he does care about this sort of stuff. So here's what I'm going to do for you guys, right? This QR code right here will get you in for free. This is the chairman's pass, right? Now, I reserve the right to cut this off at any time because very tentatively, Jill, our amazing executive director, and Jessica, the events director for the PCA, said, "We trust you, Nick. We'll see what this does. We know you reach a lot of people, but if this becomes too popular, we have to cut it off," right? So here's the deal. I'm not trying to instill a sense of urgency, right? I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a greasy salesperson. But if I were you guys, I would scan this QR code. Where what it's going to happen then is going to take you to a Google form. It's the chairman's pass. You will get a personal pass from me to get into this event for free. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars this costs to get in there among some of the best master craftspeople on the planet. You want to hang out with ZK and learn how to do gloss finishes? I'll get you in there for free, right? You want to hang out with other master craftspeople. You want to talk about Roma Bio. You want to talk about decorative finishes, historic restoration, all that other stuff. This is the place to be. So scan this QR code. You'll fill out a Google form and the operations staff will get a hold of you. Now, this show lives on forever on the internet, right? So just because this QR code is up does not mean that it's still active. So if I were you guys, I would certainly scan this QR code, fill that out and go. This right now, you scan this, this is worth, let's see where let me get that's the most used, the most frequented thing that pops up in my browser is PCA Events because I reference so many people to this thing. So let's see. Let's go down to register and see what this is. Oh, $700. $700. You scan this QR code, it's worth $700. I just saw, I wasn't sure what the registration was for it. Non-member price is $699. All right, folks, scan the QR code. You're welcome. I just gave you $700. I want to see you at this event right here. This is going to be an awesome event. We haven't done one of these in a lot of years. We are pouring time and money resources back into the craft portion of this industry. We've taken a long arc of investing in the business side. We are not going to stop that, but also we got to shore up this side of the industry too. So $700, folks, just for watching Ask a Painter. Do this, go to Maryland, hang out with the master craftspeople in the industry. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So Nick's Painting, good to see you, man. I was just in Chicago with Nick's Painting. Kind words there. Thank you very much. I just got in. What does the pass do? Painting by Joe. The pass gets you into the Craftsmanship event in the PCA for free. For free. It's a $700 value. This is a chairman's pass. I can't guarantee it's going to go on forever. That was a question from Instagram. I cannot guarantee this thing's going to go on forever. Just because it's living here doesn't mean it's still live. The operations staff have told me, Nick, if this gets out of hand, we're cutting this thing off. So get in while the door's open, fellas. Okay. and women. Ask a Painter Live number 457, Mastering the Basics, show number 8 of this year. We're going back to other Ask a Painter Live shows, including painting, coatings, all this other stuff. As we get back here, we're going to have guests on the show and things like that. This is one of the most important shows for me. It's not job costing. It's not estimating. I don't have a brand new template to share with you guys. I have feelings and I have a lot of data to share with you. And I have some of the most important things I could possibly say to other master craftspeople and fellow business owners in the industry here tonight. Some of the biggest depths of sorrow I felt in this industry were because of myself and my personality. Some of the highest highs and the moments of glory were because of my personality. This show is all about dealing with the highs and the lows, knowing yourself, and then using that amazing weapon that we are, the self, to better our businesses. Travis Dowling, you already understand the show. Travis, I am the problem for sure. Yes, we are the problem. You are the problem. I am the problem. The best part is, Travis, which we also know, you are the solution, and so am I. And that's what this show is going to be all about. So here we go. I'm going to go through some industry stats. You guys know this, but it's important to drive it home because our industry is a direct reflection of the personalities in it. The average business size of a painting business in the United States is 1.5 people, right? 99%. It's believed that 99% of all painting businesses are single owner operators, maybe 1.5, give or take. This is because all of the people in it, that's their personalities. That's what they dictate. That's what they limit out at a lot of the times, right? Most of the paint business owners on average take home $43,000 a year. That is $21.50 an hour. That is because these paint businesses are not limited by political elections, by world events, by macro or micro economies. They are literally limited by the humans. Jason Paris said one of the most genius things in the industry 10 years ago. He said, your only competition is your own ability to execute your business plan. That's what this show is all about. You are your own worst, best enemy. You are the solution to all the problems. You are the problems to all your solutions. So half of all of Americans make less than about $50,000 a year. The average American working for the average company makes more than the average paint business owner in America. That is a pretty crazy stat. Also, every 1 to 3 years, it's believed about 18 months is the over-under. Every painting business statistically goes out of business, give or take, right? 99% of them in about 18 months will go to business. Why? Not a political election, not a world event, not the macro economy. It's literally because of the owner, the operator, and the self, the person, the personality type at the helm of that company. That's why this stuff is so important to me, right? So let's talk about options for people out in the workforce, right? So down here, you have employee, you trade your time for money, right? You can be self-employed, you own a job, your active work equals income. This is kind of your owner operator. I am not laying a judgment on this. I'm not saying good or bad. I'm just saying this is what it is, folks. And your personality type will dictate where you are now and where you will be in the future on this stuff. A business owner, you own a scalable system. Income doesn't depend on active work. The people around you, through the agency of others, you make money. Phil Klein, what's up, man? Good to see you in there. Appreciate that. And then you could possibly ascribe to be an investor. You have a stabilized asset and the equity in that company makes you money. Our personalities dictate where we fall, how fast we climb, how far we fall along this thing. And that's why I think the self and self-development is a pretty amazing thing. So let's talk about the life cycle of a business, right? Because our personalities dictate that we found a business, like the introduction stage, right? You have low sales, you have high volume, and you sort of just get the company off the ground. And then typically people start trying to scale. Now, this is where we see the biggest deflection of personality types in the industry. So typically a personality type who has a high risk, high tolerance for pain will scale up very quickly, things like that. People with a low risk tolerance, low tolerance for pain will typically not scale that fast. Or people with just the inability to conquer some very basic problems just are limited in their scalability. The reason I say all this is not a value judgment of big business versus small. This is me basically saying that, I talk to so many people in this industry that want to have a company that could potentially run without them, or at least doesn't demand their every waking hour in there, right? And driving up this curve to the growth stage and the maturity stage, potentially even the decline stage and a life cycle extension, is really dictated by that person's ability to solve some basic problems. There's three main problems that every company must solve, no matter what. No matter what, whether you're Walgreens, whether you're a painting business, whether you're a real estate agent, there's three things you have to solve. I'm going to talk about them a little later, right? Then you have risk profiles, right? So inside a company, there is high risk, right? When you're the owner and the owner drives everything, it's a very risky type of business right here, right? So there are businesses that are people driven, right? That are a little less risky because it takes all the risk of the one volatile kind of personality and moves it around a little bit. Pretty soon you have processes, and the humans are the things that operate the processes, even less risk. And then your company is driven by its culture. Culture dictates the processes, process dictates the people, and then people dictate that you have a less risky business, give or take. So it's a really interesting thing to see, like the risk profile. Like sometimes we delude ourselves into thinking it's easier to just do everything ourselves until we stop doing something or take a vacation. Then we're faced with the reality that nothing happens when we don't do it, right? And that ability to overcome those simple things of like, I have to do it myself or it's not done right. The ability to win through the agency of others is the ability to grow business, right? And honestly, if we're looking at the entire industry and being honest, almost every business is limited by one's human ability to recruit, train, retain, and then win through the agency of others. It's a really interesting thing. I was at many times. So now you think about different personality profiles and the risk and reward profile. The humans that are in the employment market all have different types of personality types and risk and reward profiles. This is not something that I came up with. This is just how the world generally is. There's obviously differences to this with personality types, but basically entry-level employees, the technicians, the plumbers, the electricians, the house painters, the things like this, the guys who actually do the work, things like that, fulfill your proven promise to your clients. They typically have a low risk, low reward profile. There are many paint companies that call me and say, I want to start a bonus system for my painters. And typically what they find is that it doesn't incentivize any better or more actions out of the people. Typically, this is not a value judgment. Remember, this is not me saying good or bad. This is me saying typically the lower on the scale of a risk and reward profile, typically you find more entry level employees, right? They do not want to invest any time that they're not getting paid for. They will take a bonus if you'll give it to them, but they certainly aren't willing to risk a lot for it, right? So you find that, again, not good or bad, it just is out there. Now you can start getting some leadership team people that take a salary and a bonus. They probably would not work for 100% commission. That's really, really risky. But they will certainly take a base salary for a bit of security and surety. And then definitely they want to risk some because they want a higher reward, right? And then you get to the people like me and the people like you guys, which are the owners. Typically, we have the highest risk and reward profiles. People like us are typically willing to lose our house in order to grow this business, right? There's been many, many winters where I believe in this company. I've burned my boats. I don't have, well, we all have other options, but I am going to be painting houses and running a painting company. So there's been times where in winters when we were scaling this company where it would cost me $150,000 to keep this business afloat. And I believed in my people. And I believed in the processes. I believed in the culture of my business. And I made that bet knowing exactly what I needed to do. Our industry is a little bit cyclical, especially when you get into residential painting where the winters get a little long. There's been many winters where I've taken $150,000 out of my pocket, given it to my people to keep them here for the privilege of them working again in the summer and keeping all those people intact, paying their families and things like that. This isn't a thing most people know that I do or other people do, but it is something that I believe in. To me, there's a potential huge reward out there, right? So I would not do that if I made $43,000 a year, right? I'm going to need something much, much bigger in order to do that. Because if I'm going to risk $150,000 myself in a year for the hopes of hopefully not only paying that back, but making more, it's going to have to be on the orders of multiple. Because otherwise, somebody with our qualifications, college education, military background, and years of running a business, we can get a job at a coating manufacturer or something and make a lot of money. And we wouldn't have that much risk. So you're going to find people in your company have different risk and reward profiles. One of the biggest mistakes that I made is I thought that everybody had a similar personality like me, that wanted opportunities, that wanted to be a partner in a company, that wanted to risk a lot of things for a really big reward. It turns out that knowing yourself, knowing that that is a true thing about you, and also understanding that that's not a true thing about other people all the time. It is for some people, it's not for everybody. That's a very important thing because I built comp plans, I built opportunities, I built a business around everybody wanting to run a paint business. And that is just not the truth, right? What you're going to find is that most people on earth, 94, 95, 96% of all people do not want to own a business. They do not want to have sleepless nights. They don't want to have to make payroll during no matter what. They don't have to come up with a novel marketing plan with artificial intelligence so you get enough leads, so that you get enough estimates, so that you get enough sold jobs, so that you painters can make money and then your clients can get their house painted. Not a lot of people ever want to do that. That seems weird to them or gross or scary as hell. To me, it is not. I absolutely love it. And I'm glad I do. The problem was I was stupid enough to think that everybody else likes that sort of risk and reward and working 100 hours a week and other things else. That's not the case. The other thing that I had to get over was that people are not bad people because they don't share my personality, right? I thought, well, why wouldn't people want these opportunities? The freedom machine, the opportunities for wealth and time freedom. It's like, you know what? They want that too. They may just not want it like you. So, number one, knowing that about yourself. Number two, knowing that about others. Number three, getting over the fact that you shouldn't cast dispersions on others based on their risk and reward profile, right? Those are big, big lessons that I have. I'm glad I can share them with you. We all have to cross that bridge as managers, as leaders, and owners of these companies, right? So we talk about these things we need to overcome. The most interesting thing, I was actually talking with estimator Tom today. We did some ride-alongs together, spent some time today, and he was watching on Instagram too, might still be, or Facebook. And what's interesting is that we were talking about like Star Wars and Indiana Jones and children's Disney movies and things like this. And I learned something very demystifying about all that in college in a literary class, which is there's a thing called the hero's journey, right? And almost every single adventure movie is based on this hero's journey. It's the same story arc. They just overlay spaceman and aliens and cowboys and other literary figures and things like that. And so typically I'm going to overlay this hero's journey on owning a paint business. And pardon me for that. This is going to feel a little artsy, but it's something that gave me a lot of comfort in my years. So number one, you are there at the top of that circle. You're called to adventure. A call to adventure could be, I want to save the galaxy. A call to adventure that I experienced was, I want to start a paint business and create something, a freedom machine, right? So you cross the threshold. You take that step. I left my own family business. I forsake my family that didn't have a place for me to start my own business, create another painting company with the Slavic last name in a town of 8,000 people and try to grow it. That's crossing the threshold. You are now in it. You are in it. Then you go down a thing called the road of trials. Most people, honestly, do never leave the road of trials. So think about the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey, right? When somebody leaves home and they go, it's Medusa, it's the giant with the Cyclops, the one eye, it's all these little trials that they go and they have to use their brain and their muscles and things like that to overcome these sort of things. And you go down the road of trials and eventually hit the abyss, which is like the big final, the scary thing. And if I'm being honest, when I look at paint businesses, most people don't get through the initial set of trials because it adds more friction than if they were an employee of a company. Most of the paint businesses in the United States are made up of painting employees who could not find a professional business to work for. So they start their own, not realizing they have to run a business as well. This is not a judgment. This is not good or bad, smart or dumb, any of that stuff. This is me saying what I experience and what I experience personally in this industry. So you eventually get to the abyss. You conquer some big thing. You learn something about yourself. And then you go through metamorphosis. You change a little bit, right? Think about the transition curve. You're stupid and you're happy. I'm going to start a business. This is going to be great. You reach the peak of this mountain and you're like, oh my God, I'm getting data. It's not so great. And you start getting pessimistic and you start sliding down. That's what the road of trials and the abyss is. You change, you learn something about yourself, you get a big boon, the ultimate boon. You win something. You have time and money freedom, right? And then the greatest part is, which returns this, and it's like, oh, of course it does, because we are servant leaders, right? So think about this. You've conquered the abyss. You've learned something about yourself. You've changed. You're a different human. I manage my people differently now because I learned something: empathy and listening and kindness and asking questions and not just jumping to conclusions and yelling at people. So now you got this ultimate boon. Oh my God, I'm like a functional manager now. This is so great. Then the coolest part about this whole thing, which I never saw anybody illustrate, was returning the boon. You go back to your family, back to your community, back to your people, back to your company, and you give it back to them. And then you're called on another adventure, right? That is the hero's journey. That's what every one of us goes on in these things. And I learned about it in college. I saw the transition curve, what somebody showed me about how you make decisions, how you go, or you ride optimism, pessimism, smart, dumb, you're informed, uninformed, things like that. And then finally, I saw somebody throw the hero's journey over all of it. And then the thing that I never heard mentioned was you getting the ultimate boon and returning the ultimate boon, where you take that reward, you take that thing, and then you go back and share it with your people. What I have experienced is that this is certainly true about myself and true about almost everybody else in the industry in my position, which is we are servant leaders. We care so deeply about humans. We are in a service business, right? We're not engineers sitting in a dark office that don't interfere with any humans and stuff. I mean, all we do is deal with humans. And the hardest human to deal with sometimes is yourself, knowing about the hero's journey, knowing what type of personality, risk and reward profile you have, and also disc profiles and other things, which we're going to talk about as well. So at this point, gentle reminder, we have to remind ourselves to be honest, which is there are limitations to who we are and what we can do, right? Having said that, I do believe certainly everybody I employ, almost every paint business owner I interact with, and most humans that I've ever met are capable of so much more, including myself, than what we're currently doing or what we think we can do, right? A lot of these things were exposed to me in my time in the military. Early on, what would happen is they would send you on a march. You'd be having a huge rucksack. You'd have your weapon, you'd have your helmet, you'd have your web gear and all this other stuff. And they would march you like a dog in the middle of the night. And they would say, yeah, right over that hill. There we go. We'd march 8, 10, 12 miles. And they're like, there we are. There's the barracks. We're back. And they would do one of the harshest psychological operations you can do in another human, which is you walk in front of the barracks and you're just like spent and you're done and you've been hiking all night. And they say, once more around, folks. Nobody's going in. We're going again. And you know what? Did it again. Mentally was the hardest thing, getting over it. But you could literally put one foot in front of another. So when it comes to job costing, when it comes to marketing analysis, when it comes to recruiting processes, when it comes to training, you may not want to do it. You may think you're spent. You may think there's nothing left and you just can't spend another calorie on it. You can do it. I did it. Other people did. And I'm capable of much more than I'm doing right now. And so are you guys. So just be honest with yourself, though, that we're also not super people, right? You're not capable of everything. You're capable of more than what you're doing right now. There are some very vast limitations to you. I am a founder, a generalist, a visionary. I'll show you what my profile is in a little bit. I'll overlay it on some disc stuff, but I am technically the operations manager and the marketing manager. Those are the two main roles that I pay myself for within my company. Based on my personality type, I would not hire myself for these, but you need to be honest with yourself. I know that I would not hire somebody like me to be an operations manager. Somebody with my personality would not be a good operations manager. The thing is, I can't afford the type of operations manager that I want to have. We haven't got to that point yet. So you got to be honest with yourself. You're going to have to find somebody else to do it, which costs a lot of money and time, and you're still going to have to manage that human. And if you're a bad manager, you're probably not going to be able to manage your people or manage the humans that manage your people, or you have to do it yourself. And I got a lot of advice from a lot of peers that, Nick, typically people with the visionary sort of personality don't become integrators and don't become the doers. They love the big ideas. They love the big relationships and creating things. And they don't like operating a simple system with office hours and stuff like that. I will tell you what, though, folks, I took that challenge and I said, I may not be perfect at it, but this is a simple challenge. And it's actually a slower pace and more thoughtful pace than I normally operate at, which is actually very hard. And I told myself to do it. I now wear button up khaki shirts to the office. I wear khaki pants. I have office hours. I have a Monday morning routine. I have a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning routine. I have a job costing review thing on my calendar. I have check ins with my employees. I did ride alongs with one of my estimators today. I did a commercial site visit with project managers. I did a site walkthrough for a police station build with my people as well too. Typically, these things used to drain energy from me. I actually found a way to get energy doing these things. These are things I didn't want to do, right? But I do it and I found a way to love it. And so that's what we're going to talk about the rest of the time here, which is there are things that are going to steal your energy. There's things that are going to give you energy. As long as you know what they are, so you can apply your time or not get frustrated and give up the abyss when something constantly steals your energy and you don't like to do it and you don't look forward to it and you just magically find other things to do. You can do it. And because you feel that angst, you're not a bad person. That's a natural thing. And your personality is dictating what that is. And just knowing that is beautiful. That's what this entire show is about. Right. So now typically in a company, there's a visionary, there's an integrator, there's a sort of like sales and marketing function, there's an operations function, and there's a finance. Finance is a really weird one. It's like lead manage, hold accountable. It's some accounting stuff, it's budgeting, it's HR, it's IT, and it's some office management and stuff. But you got to be honest. Where are you on the risk and reward profile? Where are you with your personality? If you have a very high risk profile and you have a high D personality, you better find yourself up here leading some people in some LMA, in a management role, doing something like that. If you are very analytical, if you think about the task more than the humans, if you have a very slow pace, you're probably going to find yourself as a technician somewhere in there, right? Not to say you couldn't be a high level CFO, a numbers guy, things like that, but you just have to know that based on your risk and reward profile and your personality profile, what gives you energy, what doesn't, you are going to find yourself in here. And some things are going to be super easy for you. Some things are going to be super hard. You're going to be like just bound through certain things and you're going to be limited by certain things. So it's just nice to sometimes see the structure and say different types of personalities fit all over here. The one interesting thing that I'll share now, I couldn't decide in creating this presentation where to share it, but it's an interesting thing. The knee-jerk reaction in our industry is to take an entry-level employee and say, well, if they just stay here long enough, I'm sure they'll end up being management and things like that. And I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, I know it happens. I want it to happen. I will give people the opportunities to happen. I haven't had a lot of great experiences that with my own company. And certainly when I look out into other companies and not just our industry, you find that very few people can bridge the gap between being a technician and then turn into a manager into a leader. And I haven't seen many companies facilitate that. Now, what I'm open to is the idea that companies aren't good at facilitating that. But I will tell you this, my own experience with it for a company that does try to facilitate this with people, people's risk and reward profile and people's own personality and their developed skills are going to dictate whether they move up in a company. They may only have the personality type, the risk and reward profile to be a technician. Now, a technician can be paid hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. There's computer coders that make $600,000 a year. Technically, all they do is code. They're technicians. You can become ultra valuable. You may not just be able to lead other people. You need to know that about yourself, right? So one of the things many, many years ago, I devoted myself to at least learning or trying to understand was DISC profiles. I'm not going to claim that I made any big understandings. The DISC profiles became almost a parlor trick to me because I would take a DISC profile, it would spit out a 72-page report, and it's like, that's exactly me. I gave all the answers, and it ended up being just like me. It can give you some really good insights about yourself. The most interesting thing to me about the DISC profiles I used to take are the things that were marked as developed skills in there for you. And it made perfect sense to me. And I did learn some things about myself where the client satisfaction, employee satisfaction is literally my highest developed skill. There's not enough scale for me in that, right? That can even be a problem sometimes. Sometimes diplomacy and patience are really low on my scale, right? And that's just how I am. And when you look at this DISC profile and the generalizations put upon it, you can understand why. I am a very, very high D red. This is domination. This is focused kind of on a combination of focusing on tasks, acting quickly, being a little bit extroverted, moving on intuition, and moving very fast, right? So I'm kind of in this quadrant over here. And I find a lot of owners over here. The eyes, This is the personality type I typically get along with the least. It just kind of like, frictions against me a little bit. They act on a lot of feelings and not the data. And they ask facts fast. They use their intuition and they're very extroverted. So typically you find these salespeople, right? Things like that. Those are the people who probably work the least well in my company over the years. It might just be because of me. It might just be because they're not great painters and things like that. Then you have people over here like the IS kind of moving down into the S, where there's a feelings focus. People focus on people and they're a little bit introverted and they're a little bit slow. So you're going to find a lot of technicians in here, especially in the painting world. You're going to find people on here. They focus on the people, not the data, the people and the feelings and things like that, not always the data. And this can be difficult with comp plans when you show somebody their data and you say you underperformed and they'll say, well, I feel like I need a raise. That can be a big problem in there, right? Then you kind of get into the C's. The C's are kind of like the engineer types, right? The S are kind of the supporters, the people, but move a little slower. They're cautious, they're introverted, they're generally slow. They focus on tasks, things like that. Generally, what we'll find is you see a lot of project management, you see a lot of support roles in that sort of thing. So it's really interesting to see how all this works. And again, there's some of this that's biological, there's some of this that's learned. I think you can move it around. I've always been a high D. I've been moving around within the high D as I've been developing myself, as we're talking about in this show. Painting by Joe, there's one quick question on Instagram. Can you talk later at the end of your show about being your first painter and what that process was like, hiring your first painter? Yeah, I tell you what, that's a completely separate topic. We're going to have to get to that another time. But Painting by Joe, I'm going to give my email address at the end here. I do have a show. I think we did it 2 or 3 shows ago on Mastering the Basics. That's all about that. I'll give you my email address at the end of the show. If you have any specific questions, we'll do that. Typically, I would always stop and answer that question, but this show is so divergent from that. I'm just going to keep going on self. Painting by Joe, I got you, man. You get a hold of me, DMs, email, anything. We'll have a pretty deep discussion. I'll even send you a link to the show that we talk about that. So one of the things that I love too is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So there's this pyramid and it's wider at the bottom and it's thinner at the top. And what you'll find is Maslow's hierarchy of needs started with like the psychological self. So think about the triangle that says self. Think about your own personal life here. There's physiological sort of needs that somebody has. So if you want to think about, I want to find the meaning of life, I want to know what true love is, I want to do that, that's self-actualization, your purpose, things like that. You can't even begin to have the headspace of that unless you have a solid base. A base being, I have food, I have water, I have warmth, and I have the ability to rest. If those things aren't good for you or solid, or they're unstable, or you don't know where they're going to be, or they could go away, you're not going to think about anything else. This takes the form in our companies of, this painter keeps showing up late. They keep going over budget. Once in a while, they're a little sassy. They forget tasks. If they're going through a messy relationship, or there's some strife at home, or one of their young kids is struggling with a medical condition or something like that, their brain is onto this, where's my food? Where's my water? Where's my warmth? Where's my rest? Things like that. When those things get shaken or they're unstable, you divert all your energy from thinking about being a better painter or master craftsperson, advancing in the trade, and you only think about that. I may lose my housing. My child is sick. All those things. Nothing else becomes important when the base of your pyramid, that your basic needs aren't met, right? So still on the self though, security, right? Now that you're fed, you have water, your house is warm, and you have a place to rest. Now you want that to be a safe place. You want it to be stable. You don't want it to go away. This is a lot of the things we forget about the business, right? So think about the work side at this point. This could be a business owner. This could be an employee. You want money coming in, money coming out. You want vans, you want people, the basic things, people coming in, people coming out, things like that. Eventually, you want that to be stable. And I think sometimes we forget about that. We just want more people, more food, more warmth, more rest. And we forget that once those basic needs are met, we should be looking for stabilization, which is what we should be doing for our business as well. So now think about on the self side, the social stuff. We have a stable base. It's all secure. Now we need to be part of something bigger, right? And introverts like me, passive aggressive people like me, struggle with this very, very deeply. But we want to be part of something else. It might be Ask a Painter. It might be Tanner Mullen's Painting Contractors Facebook group. It might be the PCA. It might be a youth group. It might be a children's sport group. It may be Girl Scouts. It may be a religious organization. Everybody has a yearning to group up. This is a biological urge in us. Some people, like myself and other Minnesotans, don't have as much of that urge as other people. Some people have a vast amount of that sort of thing, but we all still want to group up, even if it's with your beloved wife and your kids and your family structure, even just a neighbor or a friend. We all want that, right? Once our physiological needs are met and our safety needs are met and our social needs are met, then we want some sort of notoriety and esteem. We want to progress. We want to constantly improve status, accomplishments, things like that. We want to do big things, and that can come off as gross a little bit. But again, this is the trials. This is the road of trials. You're out there trying to figure out what you're capable of, and I think everybody sooner or later, just like we're talking about in the show, you're going through these esteem things in your life where you're trying to figure out who I am, what am I good at, what am I bad at? Can I be honest with myself about what I'm bad at? Can we overcome any of those things, right? And you really start progressing through life and trying to move. If you have all these things met, if you're testing yourself and learning about yourself, remember that hero's journey where then you have a big metamorphosis? That's self-actualization. That's the top of the ladder, right? Achieving one's full potential, creativity, and growth. I don't know that we'll ever know our full potential, but finding a purpose in life and then moving all your actions towards it, right? Why do you have food? Why do you have water? Why do you have warmth? Why do you have rest? So that you can eventually self-realize, self-actualize, figure out what your purpose is, to be stable in life. Level 2 goes all the way up to level 1. You want stability in your housing and your safety and your socialization. You want stability in your self-actualization. You want to know, this is what I'm put here to do. This is how I can be the best utility to my other people, creating surplus value, being a transitional character, whatever it is for you. You have a purpose and you're not scared that you're moving in the wrong direction, and that you know that all of your actions are moving you one step closer to this purpose in life. So again, you will never even have the brain bandwidth for that if your safety, your socialization, or your physiological needs aren't met. That's why it's so important to know thyself. If you're like, why can't I just find the meaning of life? Well, your business is unstable. There's people leaving from it. You may not have enough leads. There may be not sales. There may be gaps in the schedule. You're not going to begin to start thinking about your purpose if you don't grow a professionalized business. Even if you're a single owner operator, getting enough leads to support your family, you're probably contributing to your family, right? And if any of that stability is rocked, you're not going to be thinking about self-actualization. You're going to be thinking about fixing the hole in the dam, fixing the insecurity, right? So there's something that I've actually talked about quite a bit recently. So I talked about it with with one of my young college interns. I talked about it with a family member. And I went to a high school and talked to a bunch of really super young, bright business students about this as well. Ikigai is a Japanese sort of idea where full fulfillment, Ikigai is like self-actualization, right? It's a combination of passion, mission, your profession, your vocation. And I think Ikigai sort of explains why some people are outliers, why some people are happy, why some people have a whole bunch of time and money freedom, because there's this cliche of like follow your passion, right? But follow your passion is only one of four kind of essential things you'll need to not only get time and money, but also to be happy and find your purpose. And Ikigai explains the other three, which is, yes, what you love is on top. There's something you love. There's what the world needs. If you want to go out there and do something, start a painting business, you better damn well hope that people want some painting. The bottom part is do something you're going to be paid for. You also better hope that somebody's willing to pay for that, right? There's many professions out there where you have to do a lot of them that people aren't willing to pay a lot of money for them. And not good or bad, you just have to realize that, right? You also have to look at what you're actually good at. I would make this argument, and I don't know if this goes against a lot of conventional thinking, but I almost think that focusing on what you love and neglecting the other three is a bad idea. And I would also be okay with focusing on what the world needs, what they're going to pay for, and what you're good at, and letting the love of it and the passion follow is probably a better strategy than leading with what you love and trying to figure out or make the world need it, make the world pay for it, and hopefully you get good at it, right? That seems like a bigger gamble to me. So if I'm being honest, if a young person came up to me and said, well, what's the fastest way to self-actualization or something through the professional field? I would say, I would start with, what does the world need? What are they going to pay for? Do you happen to be good at any of that stuff? And my God, if you love it, that's great. But if you don't, you can learn to love a lot of things, right? You can learn to love a lot of things. I didn't grow up hunting. I didn't know it existed. I have become an avid hunter in recent years, right? For the majority of my life, I did not know I loved it, but then I did. Something that I may even not have had interest in is a deep love and passion for me and my family now. So when you think about, following your love, I would have never followed it. I never would have found some of my passions in life if I only would have followed my love because I didn't know I loved them and I didn't know they existed. I look for the other ones. So you want to start talking about some self-actualized people. You start looking at who does all four of these. I would make a pretty good argument that all four of these are true for me. I think what I have an overabundance of is that top one, that love thing for this. I have an overabundance of passion for this. Um, oh, Nazari Kanashuk from Instagram. How do you make yourself love things you didn't initially? I think I was thinking about this in the sauna ideation the other day, but there can be lots of differences between love and satisfaction and things like that. And you can apply it to another human. You can apply it to your trade. I have grown to love many things that most people hate, and maybe I sometimes even hate, but they're very satisfying. I also believe the definition of love is, almost the absence of FOMO, give or take, right? In a very kind of blatant sense, where if you truly love the painting industry and you say it is my true love, my true professional love, if you don't find yourself thinking about any other industries or any other opportunities, that's probably true. Think about that into your personal life, right? You initially date somebody, you may not love everything about them. You may never love everything about them, but you can grow to love and appreciate things to a certain level where you don't think about anything else. And the one thing I was thinking about in the sauna is it's a very pretentious thought, but one that just I was listening to a podcast and it just came to me about, like, how do you define love, right? And for me, if I had to define it, it is being 100% as present as you can be and not wishing you were anywhere else or with anybody else, right? I'm perfectly content here. I am so content here. You could say I love this person or this thing. And how can I prove it? It doesn't even occur to me to think of other options. And I love doing this, right? That to me is how that's a very utilitarian version of what is that. But Nazari, that's what I think about it, which is you don't have to be passionate about everything you do. You don't have to fall in love with everything you do. I love this restoring Victorian houses. Anybody who's ever heard me say 3 sentences understands that I have a deep love for it. I don't love every part of it. You think on day 9 of scraping in a full RRP lead protection suit is like my passion and my love? Of course it's not. But it's part of that satisfying hero's journey, those trials to get to the abyss, to when all the prep is done in a house. You can take out that sprayer in that 310 or that 311 and just lather on that duration on the outside of these Victorian homes. After all the scraping, the safe lead prep is done, the spot priming, the sanding, the caulking, and you massage this house back to life. You stain kill the nails, and you finally get to do that thing you love deeply. And all that hero's journey just led up to that point. And that makes it satisfying. Like, things you work for and earn are so much more rewarding and fulfilling than things you just come across like the lottery. It's a proven by data, things like that. People that come across time and money freedom because of a painting business is the definition of earning it, a service business, right? You also have to understand this about yourself. You guys heard the LMA show the week previous to this. It is my opinion and my thesis that this industry there's a dearth of management, right? There's a lot of founders, there's a lot of big salespeople, there's a lot of technicians. There's nobody to manage this stuff. The management is sometimes the boring and the mundane and the routine and things like that. People who generally found and scale a business are cowboys, firemen, firewomen, and that doesn't appeal to them. They're actually really bad at it and can turn people away. Situational leadership. I did an entire show on this because I read the book about it and I just thought I would share it with you guys. It's adapting your leadership style to each situation based on the needs of the team, not on the needs of you. And there's a whole show on this. I'm not going to go into it, but they theorize that there's kind of 4 different forms of situational leadership or kind of leading and developing another human. You can also apply this to yourself: delegating, supporting, coaching, and directing. And there's different humans at different times during their life need different things. And just knowing if you're even good at this or bad at that, or if you have to do it, what you're trying to do within there, This was one of the biggest shocks to my system, which is, well, listen, I'm a business owner. I manage people. It's like, no, you don't. You sell a lot of work. You make a vision for the future. You grab as many good people as you can. Some of them stay, some of them go, but you're not actively managing them. And you could be getting a lot more out of your business and giving a lot more to your people if you were an active manager. So a shock to my system was people blatantly looking in my face and say, in the most brutal way they can, Nick, you're not a manager and you'll probably never be a manager. But here's the deal. If you want to go past this stage in your company, this hero's journey, and cross that abyss, you got to be the hero of this thing. You got to turn yourself into a manager and function as one for a while. So it's an interesting thing. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, I don't want to. I'm not going to risk that. I don't even know what the reward is, or that reward's not big enough. For me, I love this. The world wants it. It's going to pay for it. And I'm good at it. And this is what I'm doing. It's my professional purpose in life. And I'm going to keep going down this path. But knowing what you're good at and what you're bad at, and then building a company or a system or a culture or a team around you in order to facilitate, that is good. What I'm not telling you to do is, I don't want to do something, or I'm not good at something, so I just paid somebody to do it. That is not what I'm saying. That is not what this is. That's actually a worse scenario than that, right? That is not what we're talking about. All of this is based on core values, right? And knowing yourself and your core values is a very important thing. A common test for a lot of purposes in life, for finding out your core values, is what makes you weep, what makes you pound your fist on the table, what excites you, what makes you get up out of your chair and want to take action, right? In that, there's a lot of core values: justice, truth, production, quality, discipline, improvement, things like that. There's these deep, big core values in there. And knowing yourself, having these conversations with yourself and other people, and then trying to figure out what your real core values are, is one of those things that initially guides your compass and says, we may not be, I don't know the exact degree we're going to, but I can give you about a 30-degree sector over here. Just start walking in that direction. It's not that way. It's this way. We'll figure that out later, but your core values will keep bumping you along. You can cowboy up and, I just clicked myself out of my own slide. I was going to say something very profound and I interrupted myself. You can cowboy or cowgirl up to many, many millions of dollars and stuff like that. But if you don't have core values with you or along the way, you're not going to stay there. And that's just the truth. We've seen this with lots of companies. Momentarily, with a high pain tolerance and a lot of grit, you can achieve some great things, but they typically aren't sustainable, and they're typically not sustainable the right way if you don't have these core values. So knowing this about yourself, going on those deep searches, Traction, the book, will help you with this sort of thing. Nasri, thanks for explaining. I was expecting to hear something like just be a man. No, not here, man. That's not Ask a Painter. You can get that somewhere else. There's plenty of podcasts for that. So let's talk about some professional thing here. Fred Emery from Facebook. Leave it to Nick to come up with a simple utilitarian definition of one of the most complex human emotions. I love, you nailed it. Oh, thanks, man. Oh, Justin, Katie, how's it going, man? I'm learning to love the management and training side of the business. You can learn to love it just like everything else, right? When you were a kid, you didn't like mowing the lawn. Middle-aged dudes love mowing the lawn, right? You can learn to love a lot of things. So I hope we get to learn to love a lot of things here as well. So some tactical personal professionalization, intentionally identifying, discussing, and solving your personal shortcomings, right? Knowing thyself, finding a purpose in life, things like that, taking a DISC profile, understanding what you're good at, bad at, scheduling, the discipline, the self-discipline. One of my core values was stolen from Jocko Willink. Discipline equals freedom. It's just perfect. Discipline equals freedom. You think you're disciplining yourself and you're restricting yourself, constraining yourself. You're not. You're creating freedom. And that's been proven over and over in my life. Scheduling is one of those things that so many business owners fight. And if I'm being honest, I talk to a lot of paint business owners who started a paint business because they don't like accountability, if I'm being honest. Now, that can be good or bad, right? But sometimes people don't like having to have hours for a painting company to paint. Maybe they don't like following a standard operating procedure. Maybe they like to take vast amount of time off, maybe work all night, do erratic hours, things like that. People maybe don't want to have to do estimates and have to answer phone calls. There's a lot of paint business owners who don't like accountability. They want to do whatever they want, whenever they want. So they decide not to be an employee, which they can't function in, and start their own business. Some of these businesses turn out to be really great, interesting things. A lot of them just toil because they brought that technician and employee mentality into a business ownership thing. And then you're undisciplined and there's no freedom behind that. So prioritizing things too. So I don't have my leather thing is in the house right now, but you guys know I sit down in the morning and I have my master to-do list, and I look through that every morning and I read it. This is my silent planning, and then I pick 3 to 5 things out of there to write down to do. Hopefully today, but maybe over the course of 2 or 3 days. But I'm prioritizing. You're taking a look at all the things, all the orbs floating around you, and you pick 3 to 5 of them out of there. And then within those 3 to 5, you prioritize them top to bottom. You got a vision. You got to start laying something out in front of your people, because there's typically only one person who holds the vision of a company. There's typically not 4 visionaries of a company. And guess what? If you started the company, you're going to have to be the visionary, even if you're not. Every company counts on a vision, and you can, in fact, inspire your employees based on that vision as well, too. And accountability is a tough thing. And the problem is with people like us, who are the owners, the founders, and the scalers, we're only accountable to ourselves a lot of the time. So I've built this network. There's probably about 5 or 6 different meetings every 2 weeks that I do with performance coaches and mentors and coaches and friends and accountability partners to make sure that I built a system around me. So lest my employees think that, you got one boss who's kind of like a gnat, a mosquito in your ear. I have created a system where there's 6 bosses over me that hold me accountable, and I enjoy brutalism. I like being told, that was a bad thing. You're really bad at that. You need to fix that right now. What are you going to do? And then I'm going to hold you accountable to it. I like that a great deal. Most people do not, but then I know that about myself and I can function better in it. I don't want fluff. I don't want any of those niceties, right? So this is my Arrow project that I've been doing with Jason Paris. He was a great mind when it comes to this sort of thing. I don't know anybody who's got a more developed sense of it. Basically, it's been a multi-year process of trying to figure out. I've spent the majority of my life coping with family stuff. And then I decided to start my own family. And then I started to start my own businesses, right? So most of my entire 40 plus years now has been devoted to just functioning and being utilitarian and being brutal and things like this. And, eventually, when some of those tasks don't demand that much from you, you kind of find like you're left with yourself. And so discovering things about you is a big thing. That's kind of like phase 1. How were you brought up? What was your childhood like? What were your parents like? What were you conditioned to do and not to do? What are you hypersensitive to? What are you desensitized to? Just knowing these things about yourself is the most beautiful thing, because it doesn't bug you. You don't think there's something wrong with you. It's like, oh, of course, a product of this is this, and that's why this occurs. And knowing why things occur and the substance behind them is a very important thing. This spreadsheet is a multi-year effort that goes to the 8 most important areas of my life. At the end, what I think I'm capable of doing with them, what my purpose is in life, moving in that compass direction like this, and then backing it up to this week. What am I going to do every day? And I have about 30 different micro specific goals that have to happen over a week or a month. It seems like a lot, but it's all guiding towards my purpose. And so it's really easy to do. This is a document I look at every week, a couple times a week to make sure I remind myself. But this tells you how serious I am about knowing thyself, right? I have become a better human, a better father, a better craftsperson. See the wallpaper in this room? This is the finest wallpaper job I've ever done. And I haven't wallpapered in about 7 or 8 years. My mind is in a completely different place than it was when I used to install a bunch of wallpaper. Everything went beautifully. I enjoyed every bit of it. I learned to love it. I did not learn to love complicated cuts like around these historic headers and things like that. I used to hate that sort of thing. And now I know that about myself. I've learned to be a good manager. I've learned to control my pace. And I did the finest wallpaper job I've ever done in my life because my headspace was something different. And I knew that about myself. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing. So this is how serious I take that sort of thing in my life about knowing thyself, because knowing thyself makes you sleep a lot better at night. So think about, like, this is a thing that is common, like dysfunctions of a team, right? But it also coincides with roles of a leader. And I will tell you this, almost all of our industry is limited by one major one of these, and this is avoidance of accountability and confronting difficult issues. So if you think about this little slice right here, if there's a dysfunction of a team, people don't like accountability. Typically, it's because a leader won't confront difficult issues, especially with employees. And I'm an introverted, passive aggressive person. I naturally don't like a lot of this, but guess what my company told me it needed? It needed somebody to confront the difficult issues so that people didn't avoid accountability. And so knowing that there's dysfunctions, knowing that there's things you have to do as a leader, and then taking action, and then knowing if you're the right person to do it or not is a really big thing, right? And again, you got to do the visioning. You got to lay a plan out for the future. You have to envision where the little chess pieces go, what revenue you're going to do, and that helps inspire your people, right? You also have to be honest about this is an idea called the flywheel, right? Knowing yourself and knowing what you created is a big thing. What are you creating? In my company, I had the help of somebody, and we broke down all the things that we do, all the processes, and they started writing them down and condensing them. And what we found is there's typically a flywheel in a business. We do something, we do a bunch of other things, and it comes back around to feed that thing, and it keeps rolling and rolling. The main things that my business does is we attract decent human beings, we inspire those people, we have simple systems that create surprisingly fine finishes. That makes a bunch of happy clients. That maximizes our margins. That allows us to recruit more and attract more decent human beings. So when you look at this, yes, we are a painting company, and painting fills in the gaps here, and it's the vehicle in which we do to have people pay us for something. If I just develop humans, nobody's going to pay me for that. If we paint their house to develop humans, people will pay you for that. What we are is a recruiting, training, and retaining machine that happens to paint houses. And this was a hard pill to swallow because I am a master craftsperson. I love paint. I love doing it. I love applying it. I love taking it off. I love all these things about it, right? And in the end, that's not the true identity of our company. The purpose of our company's self-identity, its self-development is that it's a human machine, and we have to attract the good stuff, good inputs, good algorithm, good output. We got to attract the people, inspire them, train them. They do great things. People give us money that lets us pay them more, keep them longer, and recruit more ones. That's typically how it goes. This is called the flywheel exercise. You can look it up in the internet, but I did this years ago, and it changed the course of my company. So when I get up and I have 10 hours today to work, do I want to spend researching coding science, or do I want to spend managing and supporting my people? If you want to build what I do, the choice is clear. You got to devote your time to your people and not the tasks, right? And that might be against your personality type. I told you before I was going to tell you the 3 things that you have to solve no matter what if you're a business owner, any business owner. You got to solve leads, you got to solve labor, you got to solve leadership, right? If you think a company is going to solve any of these for you, they're probably not, because you're always going to have to hold accountable the people who do this. So as you go forth, there will never be a time where you have solved leads, where you always have more than enough leads than you need, right? There'll never be a time where you solve labor. You have more than enough labor than you need. And there will never be a time where you have good enough and enough leaders in your company. These are the 3 things that all business owners need to solve. Don't ever fool yourself into thinking that you don't have to. So here's a graph of my revenue from my company from a section of years. And you can see 2 interesting little, not plateaus, but a decline in the rate at which we were growing. In these 2 things, the interesting thing, data and feelings, the feeling was, well, Nick, you're the bottleneck. You're constricting your company. You're limiting the possibilities of it. And the data will say, yeah, you were, because that first little thing there was when I didn't have anybody on my leadership team. It was just me producing jobs, selling jobs, everything else, and facilitating the painters. I became the constriction point. I hired a project manager. We started going up again. Then I got a redundant team. Nick was still doing a lot of stuff. We had some people here, but we limited out again, finding redundancy in those and getting the next layer of that leadership team that allowed us to grow again like that. So this is the data side of all the feelings and the things that we're talking about here, right? You guys know my retreats. They're a big, beautiful thing that talks basically about this self-development. I want to share with you one of the most interesting anecdotal data points from there, which is enough people have been going to the retreat for long enough time that they've solved a lot of the basic issues that they came there to solve. When do I hire my first estimator? When does somebody get an operations manager? Should I take on a partner? Should I sell my business? So many of these people have been accomplishing so many of these things on their hero's journey that the most interesting trend emerged at the last 2 retreats. When all the basic things on Maslow's hierarchy of needs are your safety, your security, your socialization, your accolades, you've achieved things, you have time and money freedom, People struggle with the self-actualization. They're left with themselves. And then they struggle to find a purpose. In its worst form, people will take up substance abuse. They may leave their wife. They may be unfaithful to their wife. They may do all sorts of irrational things because they're feeling this angst. They may not know this about themselves, and they're feeling the weight of the world because they don't have a purpose, right? So we found that a lot of people were left with lack of purpose because their identity was this painting business their entire life. And when it didn't need them as much as they did, they actually had an identity crisis. So thinking about who you are, knowing your personality type, knowing your risk and reward profile, seeing how much of your needs are met, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, will dictate exactly where you are in the world with all this stuff and if you have a purpose or not. So, and again, don't ever forget this, which is we say a lot of things we don't mean and aren't true. We do a lot of things that aren't great, right? That we believe to be true. We can delude ourselves into thinking a lot of things. And a lot of these have to do around head trash and limiting beliefs. Just like that march I was describing in the Army, there's a limiting belief for, oh my God, I'm dying. I couldn't go another mile. You can go quite a few more miles. And sometimes we like to tell ourselves that. Sometimes we don't even know we're telling ourselves that. It's just it's just a product of who we are and what we do and the society that we've been raised in. So again, knowing yourself and knowing that your head will create limiting beliefs and things like that is a very important thing. It's a very important thing to know. Sometimes you're your own worst enemy, right? And that's where we're going to bring this show around to, which is this is the final show of the 2025 Mastering the Basics series. I appreciate the living hell out of you guys. I'm going to ask right now, we got quite a few people watching on the platforms. Like this, share it, put it in the Facebook groups, put it in your feed, put it in your stories. I'd be grateful. Email me, nick@nickslavic.com, and I'll send you the entire updated steps to professionalization. I update them every single week after the show with brand new links from that show, new resources. And as always, I've given away about 50 templates to about 700 people already this year in this series. And all those resources are new every year. Every year I update them with the current learnings and all that other stuff. So also, I want to go back to one other thing. Let's go back to this. I want to give you guys this bad boy again real quick because remember, mastering the basics is sometimes about yourself, sometimes about your business. It's sometimes even about the craft of what we do, right? This is the final show on the Mastering the Basics 2025. It's been awesome to be here with you guys. All these shows will be archived forever. All of them will be hyperlinked in the steps to professionalization, which I'll send you. And we're going to get back to some normal shows. But before we do that, I want to give you one last chance to get that QR code. This is worth $700 right here, right? This is the chairman's pass into the Craftsmanship Forum. There is only one of these QR codes. It's not just one admittance. There's only one QR code. These are not given to anybody else, not a vendor of the PCA, not a board member, not an employee or anything. This is given to me. They trusted me with this code to get you in for free. This is my gift. This is my final year as a chairman. I want you to experience what I experienced over 10 years ago. My first PCA event ever was this, the Craftsmanship Forum and the Craftsmanship event. And it introduced me to this entire industry. And I found the best friends I have in my industry, people who are like family. I found time and money freedom. And I got introduced to possibilities I didn't know exist, right? So scan this thing. This is a free pass. This is worth $700 into the Craftsmanship event. You're going to get to hang out with guys like ZK and learn how to do gloss stuff, right? This is amazing. It's multi-days. It's It's in April. It's in Annapolis, Maryland. Appreciate the heck out of you guys. I'm trying to think if I had one other I thought I had one other to-do item I was mentally checking off. I don't think I remember what it is. I think that was about it. So guys, it's been awesome. Left move painting. Yes. Wait, multiple people can use this. Yes. But remember, this QR code was trusted with me. The operations staff also said, we're going to cut this off at any time. So if this show is going to live on forever, 30 years from now, you can scan this QR code. If you see this show three days from now, this code may already be gone. If this is future time and I'm talking to you 3 days into the future, this may not work right here. You can scan it. It may take you to a form. You may fill it out. You may not get one of those free vouchers. It's going to take you to a Google form. You're going to put your information in there and somebody from the PCA is going to personally contact you and work with you to get this chairman's pass. My gift to you, this is the first event that I ever went to 10 years ago. I want to share this with you guys. I don't want any hurdles in front of you. I don't want any limiting beliefs, any head trash about you coming to this. This event 10 years ago changed my entire life. Changed my entire life. That is not hyperbole. Anybody who's spent more than a few minutes with me know that it's true. Scan this QR code, start grouping up, working up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, getting your socialization in so that you can become self-actualized. Join us at one of these events, become a PCA member, join me and all these other people watching. So, all right, everybody, have a great evening. Email me. Have a great night, and we'll see you guys next week.